And this morning, I want to zero in on one mother in Scripture who changed the world by the way that she raised her son. Her name was Eunice. You may not know her, but you've probably heard of her son, Timothy. You don't know too much about Eunice, but most of us know Timothy. Because, well, there was 1st and 2nd Timothy. Now, it wasn't a name problem. Said, well, this child is first, and I'll call it 1st Timothy. And I had this second, and thought, well, that's probably too much on me to try to come up with another name, so I'll just call this one 2nd Timothy. It doesn't really work like that. It's two different chapters in the Bible. But here's the thing. The Apostle Paul, he was the Apostle Paul's protege. And he's mentioned by name 25 times in Paul's writing. Is named by Paul as the co-author of 6 of Paul's 13 epistles. And there was a recipient of 2 of them, the last letters Paul ever wrote. But I'm going to put Timothy off to the side now and talk about his mama. Let's talk about Mrs. Eunice. The name Eunice in Greek is Eunike. In mythology, Nike was the goddess of victory, and the particle "eu" means good. So the name Eunice could be translated virtuous victor. And I think that's a pretty great name for a description of moms, virtuous victor. And so we're introduced to her in 2 Timothy. So even though Mother's Day wasn't around when Timothy was alive, I want us to imagine 4 things might been in the Mother's Day card that Timothy gave to his mama Eunice. Now, I've got to tell you, some of this I don't have any Bible for I don't know if he ever gave her a card. And there wasn't any Mother's Day. So before you go home and say the pastor was preaching false doctrine, I'm telling you, this is false going in. I want you to know that. Because a lot of you are going to go home, he was talking about when Timothy gave his mom a Mother's Day card, and I just don't believe it. Well, I tell you what, I think he would have put in that card this: Mom, thanks for keeping at it. Have you ever noticed that when you start a project, sometimes, especially with your kids, they seem to forget what you started them off on? Huh? Now, I know when Danny was growing up, his mother, and we were talking about it, I think, yesterday, there was a T-shirt that you can buy. What is the name of the T-shirt? I survived a wooden spoon survivor. Jill used to spank Danny, but she noticed it hurt her more than it was hurting him. So she got a weapon of mass destruction and aimed it where she thought it would do the most good. But sometimes Danny would get more than one a week, more than one a day. So thanks, Mom, for keeping at it, because in modern Turkey, about 1,000 miles from Jerusalem, Eunice isn't named there, but the text just says that a disciple was there named Timothy, the son of a Jewish woman who was a believer, but his father was a Greek. So we know that Timothy's mother was a believer, but all that we know about his dad was that he was a Greek. And since the text says, but his father was a Greek, the implication is that he didn't share his wife's faithfulness to God. Some scholars believe that he either died or when Timothy was a child, or he abandoned his family, possibly because he didn't share her faith. But we don't know for sure. All that we know is that it seemed like that Eunice was the one that was responsible for bringing up that child, Timothy, in the fear and admonition of the Lord. I think that's a pretty cool thing to think about, because Timothy may have been raised by a single mother. We don't know that for sure, but we learn her name is Eunice from 2 Timothy. We also learned that her mom, Lois, was a woman of faith. They've got a little thing going. Mama was like that. My mama was like that. My mama was like that. What's your mama like? If you're here, she's probably had something to do with that as well. And the thing is, she she had 2 strikes against her. She wouldn't have been accepted by the Jews because she followed Jesus. She wouldn't have been accepted by the Greeks because she was Jewish. Yet she raised a young man who, according to Acts 16:1, was already a disciple. Before he ever met Paul, he was already following. What's more, verse 2 says that he was well spoken of by the brethren at Lystra and Iconium. And that means he had a good reputation with other believers. Paul had already visited those areas the first missionary journey, so it's possible that Paul had already heard of him, and there's just something special about Timothy. I got to believe with all of my heart that he had some really good teaching coming up. She did all this without a believing husband, and some of you moms know what that's like. You've had to try to bring your child up, and you didn't get much support. And sometimes it's just the other way around, too. But we're not talking about fathers today. Had I been with fathers, I would have said you might have had some of that as well. But it's not your day, and you won't get a donut afterwards.